Number 8. Hind Bustami. 28-year-old Hind Bustami first made headlines in 2022 for accusing Las Vegas police of arresting her for being too good-looking. Officers said that she tried to dine and dash at a Chili's restaurant and accused her of being drunk and belligerent. But Bustami allegedly claimed that they targeted her because they had never seen anyone as pretty as she is. According to a police report, the young woman called the officers perverts and threatened to spit on them. Bustami's cringeworthy behavior became downright incriminating 2 months later when a woman called 911, stating that her mother was dead. It was at least the 8th time that year officers had reported to the family's home. Neighbors said they saw the young woman talking to herself on different occasions and that she frequently let herself into people's garages. For whatever reason, Bustami was also seen scattering her things on the ground outside. When she called to report her mother's death, she told the dispatcher, "I think I killed my mommy." When she was pressed for more information, Bustami said that she broke a table over her mother's head and cut her neck off. First responders found 61-year-old Afaf Hussanin unresponsive with multiple lacerations. By then, Bustami had fled the scene. Officers pulled her over in California and reportedly found her behind the wheel covered in blood. They said that she admitted once again to killing her mother, this time claiming that she cut the victim with shards of glass during an argument. Bustami was extradited to Las Vegas and she's now facing an open murder charge. Number 7. Isabella Guzman. In 2020, 7-year-old footage from the trial of accused murder suspect Isabella Guzman went viral on TikTok. Guzman stabbed her mother in the face dozens of times, but it was her bizarre courtroom behavior that drew attention to her. Footage showed the young woman making strange facial expressions and showing no outward remorse for her crime. She can also be seen smirking and smiling at the camera. Hours before the murder, Guzman's mother, Yoon Min Hoi, called the police due to her daughter's concerning demeanor. The relationship was strained, but it apparently reached a breaking point as later that day, Yoon Mi was found dead. The troubled teen's father, Robert Guzman, told the press that he tried to calm his daughter down by giving her advice, but it clearly didn't work. Isabella was apprehended the next day. She had to be dragged out of her cell to attend her court hearing and claimed that voices told her to kill her mother. In a rare outcome for a murder charge, the judge accepted her insanity plea after a psychiatric evaluation diagnosed her with paranoid schizophrenia. It was concluded that she'd suffered from the disorder for years without receiving the proper medication. She was ordered to undergo treatment at an institution until her mental health was restored, a sentence that doesn't come with a defined time period and could take anywhere from days to years. Guzman petitioned for release in 2020, claiming that her condition had improved with medication and that she wasn't herself when she murdered Yoon Mi. She told CBS 4 that she endured years of abuse from her family and that it worsened when she quit being a Jehovah's Witness. Unfortunately, it's unclear whether her request to rejoin society was granted. Number 6. JUANA BARRAZA. During the late 1990s, professional wrestler JUANA BARRAZA began murdering elderly women throughout Mexico City. Motivated by the need for money and a lingering resentment toward her own mother dating back to childhood, she targeted victims over the age of 60 who lived alone. She gained access to their homes by pretending to be a social worker, a nurse, or a cleaner in search of work, and on multiple occasions, she offered to help them with their groceries. Barraza then bludgeoned and strangled each victim to death and robbed their home, earning her the nickname Mata Viejitas, or the Little Old Lady Killer. Citizens began to suspect that a serial killer was at work, but police initially dismissed the idea. The murders continued into the 2000s, and when authorities finally launched an investigation, they announced that the suspect appeared to be a man who wore women's clothing. At least one journalist speculated that this was more of a witch hunt against the city's transsexual prostitutes than an authentic murder investigation. Police finally identified Barraza as a suspect after an eyewitness saw her leaving the home of her latest victim in 2006. They connected her with at least 10 murders through fingerprints, but she was convicted of 16 murders in total, although it's believed that she killed at least 42 people. 30 unsolved cases were closed after Barraza was arrested, so it's impossible to know exactly how many lives she took. She was sentenced to 759 years in prison, despite Mexico's maximum sentence of 60 years. Number 5. Cindy SCHULZ-JUEDES. In 2004, single father of four Kenneth JUEDES eloped with a woman named Cindy Schultz and moved her into his beautiful farmhouse in Wausau, Wisconsin. 2 years later, Cindy found Kenneth dead in a pool of his own blood on their bed. Next to him on Cindy's side of the mattress was a piece of paper with the B word written on it, stuck to her pillow with a knife. Cindy claimed she slept in the couple's camper the night before to escape noise in the household. She said she was heavily medicated and didn't hear their dog barking. She also said she was oblivious to the 2 gunshots that killed Kenneth, as well as any other noises that would indicate something was wrong. The case quickly became a whodunit, and the investigation lasted several years. In the meantime, Cindy moved on suspiciously fast. Within days of her husband's death, she stopped taking calls from his family and took all the photos of his children off the living room wall. She also went against his Catholic mother's wishes and had Kenneth's body cremated. It was also odd that Kenneth had supposedly written his children out of his will before he died. For some reason, he made Cindy his sole beneficiary in addition to the hefty life insurance payout she stood to receive from his death. Fingers pointed wildly in all directions for 15 years. Cindy accused Kenneth's teenagers of possibly co-conspiring to kill their dad, and she sent law enforcement various other tips that did nothing to help solve the case. Detectives were also suspicious of Kenneth's former business partner, the troubled teens that the couple took in as foster children, and some local drunks. However, most of the suspects were ultimately cleared, and authorities kept circling back to Cindy. In 2021, they decided to try the case based on circumstantial evidence due to concerns about aging witnesses they needed testimony from. A jury ultimately convicted Cindy, who was now 66 years old, of first-degree murder. She's currently serving a life sentence and continues to maintain her innocence from behind bars. Number 4. Shayna Hubers. In 2011, a successful young attorney from Kentucky named Ryan Poston began dating a glamorous 19-year-old woman named Shayna Hubers. The young woman's overwhelming behavior soon became a major source of stress for Poston, who told his friends and colleagues that Shayna was controlling and jealous. She clearly took the relationship a lot more seriously than he did and wasn't looking for the heavy commitment she seemed to demand. Poston distanced himself from Shayna, but she continued to contact him obsessively and showed up at his condo unannounced several times despite living 90 miles away. His friends would later say that Poston didn't put his foot down hard enough when he tried to end things with the woman because he didn't want to hurt Shayna's feelings. After snooping into his messages and finding out that he had an upcoming date with the winner of the Miss Ohio beauty pageant, Shayna drove to Poston's apartment and shot him 6 times, ending his life at just 29 years old. She claimed the shooting was in self-defense, but the physical evidence suggested Poston was in a defenseless position when it happened. Unaware that a surveillance camera was rolling in the interrogation room, she made incriminating comments to herself when she was alone. She also requested an attorney, but wouldn't stop talking to anyone who would listen, and her story about what happened changed several times. At one point, Shayna said that she continued shooting Poston because she didn't want him to survive with a deformed face because he was vain, adding that she gave him the nose job he always wanted. As a result of her actions, Shayna's currently serving life in prison and will become eligible for parole in 2032. Number 3. Lulu Sosa. Divorced single dad Ramon Sosa met Maria de Lourdes Dorantes, better known as Lulu, in 2007. They got married and opened a profitable gym together in Houston, but their relationship noticeably changed after Lulu gained her U.S. citizenship, as she was originally from Mexico. Her tone was no longer warm or loving, according to Ramon, and she frequently reminded him that she was now an American and was entitled to the same benefits as him. Ramon didn't understand exactly what his wife meant, and he began to notice that the couple's money was mysteriously disappearing. But he fought to make the marriage work as Lulu became increasingly cold and distant. They ultimately separated in 2015 and began the process to get a divorce. Even though Lulu accused Ramon of horrifying allegations of abuse, the pair continued to live in the same house together. While training at the couple's gym one day, a boxer named Mundo overheard Lulu talking about wanting Ramon dead and offered to connect her with a hitman. In reality, he was terrified for Ramon's safety and went straight to the police with the information. Mundo continued to play along, telling Lulu that he found someone willing to do the job for $3,000. In the meantime, Ramon carried on with life as usual in their household, despite knowing he was living with someone who wanted him gone. With the help of law enforcement, he posed for photos that made it seem as though the hitman had done his job. An undercover agent pretended to be the assassin and showed the pictures they'd taken to Lulu. When she saw the photo of Ramon lying in a shallow pit with what looked like a bullet wound to the head, she smiled. Lulu pleaded guilty to solicitation of murder in 2015 and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Ramon forgave her, but moved on with his life and found true love with a new partner. Number 2. Betty Broderick. Stay-at-home mother of 4 Betty Broderick began to suspect her millionaire husband, prominent San Diego attorney Dan Broderick, of cheating on her during the 1980s. He eventually moved out and took custody of their children. It took 4 years for the former couple to settle their contentious divorce case. In the meantime, Dan moved in with his secretary, Linda Colquina, who Betty had suspected him of cheating on her with. Betty contacted Dan obsessively, ignoring numerous restraining orders and leaving vile messages on his answering machine. She also trespassed onto his property and drove her car into his front door, knowing their kids were inside the house at the time. When Dan and Linda married in 1989, they were so concerned about Betty showing up at the wedding that Linda urged Dan to wear a bulletproof vest. Luckily, she stayed away. However, just 7 months later, Betty stole a key to Dan's home from their daughter and removed a phone and answering machine from the bedroom when he wasn't there. She then returned in the middle of the night and shot Dan and Linda dead while they slept in their bed. Betty turned herself into the police and never denied killing the couple, but she claimed that it wasn't premeditated and that she suffered from battered wife syndrome. Her first trial ended in a hung jury, but she was found guilty during her second trial and received 2 life sentences as a result. She's been denied parole twice and will be eligible again in 2032 when she's 84 years old. Over the years, Betty has blatantly admitted to feeling no remorse for the double murder, and even her kids are divided on whether they think she deserves freedom. Number 1. CHACEY Poynter. In 2016, police were called to a dirt road in Royce City, Texas, where they found 47-year-old firefighter Robert Poynter dead from a gunshot wound. His body was found sitting in the back seat of his estranged wife, CHACEY's Jeep. The woman was hyperventilating and could barely speak when they arrived. It almost seemed theatrical, like bad acting, and the responding officers became suspicious of her. CHACEY also overshared about her personal life and kept pausing, as if she were thinking a little too hard about questions that should have been easy to answer. CHACEY said she called Robert for help when her Jeep got stuck in the mud, and that she went down the rarely traveled dirt road after missing a turn. She then claimed that out of nowhere, a gunman emerged from the wilderness and shot Robert. Investigators found it hard to believe that someone was lying in wait along the remote road for their chance to fatally shoot a random stranger. They discovered that Robert was planning to divorce CHACEY and petition for full custody of their child, and that his wife had been cheating on him with several different men. Detectives began poking holes in her story by disproving her claim that one of her boyfriends, Michael Garza, was working out of state when Robert was shot. Police also discovered that CHACEY had 2 possible motives for the crime: custody of her and Robert's daughter, and collecting on his $685,000 life insurance policy. Garza was convicted of Robert's murder and received a 99-year prison sentence as a result. CHACEY was also found guilty of murder for her role in the crime and was sentenced to life. The disgraced former housewife maintained her innocence in a 48 Hours interview, arguing that being a cheater doesn't make her a killer and that she's devastated about her husband's passing. It's a far cry from the tales of horrific abuse she told her boyfriends in her attempts to persuade them to kill the man. Would you rather be stalked relentlessly by your partner's deranged, jealous ex, or date someone with 7 kids who has serious baby mama or baby daddy drama? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!